My fiancée presented me with a contract, stating that her ex-husband would reside in our home and raise our children. She declared that this was non-negotiable, so I did not simply leave. I hired a lawyer and destroyed her reputation. Before we begin, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you don't miss news stories. My fiancée handed me a soul bond expansion protocol during our engagement party. It required her ex-boyfriend to live in our guest house and have veto power over our future children's education. She said it was non-negotiable. So, I didn't just walk out, I dismantled her entire world. I am 31 years old, a senior systems architect in Seattle. I've spent my life building things that work, stable, logical, and secure. 3 years ago, I met Ava. She was everything I wasn't, a free-spirited, floral designer with a laugh that felt like sunlight. I thought she was my balance. I thought she was my home. Turns out, I was just a series of funding round. The night it all collapsed was supposed to be the best night of my life. We were at the Obsidian, an exclusive rooftop restaurant overlooking the Puget Sound. Our families were there, 14 people in total. My parents, who are retired schoolteachers, looked a bit out of place next to Ava's parents, Sterling and Vivian. Sterling is a high-end corporate mediator, and Vivian is a holistic life architect who charges $500 an hour to tell wealthy women how to align their chakras. They always treated me like a project, a rough stone they were polishing. Halfway through the main course, Ava didn't pull out a gift or a sentimental letter. She pulled out a leather-bound folio. "Ethan," she said, her voice calm and rehearsed. The table went silent. "We've talked about our future. About how we want to transcend the ownership model of traditional marriage. My parents and I, along with Julian, have drafted the life integration clause." I froze. Julian. Julian was her ex, but in their world they didn't use that word. He was her primary soul guide. He was a man who wore linen shirts, didn't believe in shoes, and lived off a trust fund while consulting on spiritual wellness. He was sitting right there at the table, nodding like a wise monk. I opened the folio. My hands were shaking. It wasn't a poem. It was a legal contract. The terms were insane. Julian was to be granted permanent residency in the ADU, accessory dwelling unit, of the house I had just bought. He was listed as a co-parental consultant for any future children, meaning he had equal say in their schooling and spiritual upbringing. Most shockingly, there was a financial clause. 15% of my annual salary was to be diverted into a community wellness trust, managed by Julian and Vivian. "This is a joke, right?" I laughed, looking around. No one laughed back. Vivian leaned forward, her eyes cold. "Ethan, we are trying to invite you into an evolved way of living. Radical transparency. Why should Ava lose her most important soul connection just because she's marrying you?" Ava reached across the table and touched my hand. Ethan, Julian has been in my life since I was 19. He knows my soul better than anyone. He stays or we don't do this. It's non-negotiable." She actually called me by his name. Or maybe she called him by mine. At that moment, I realized I wasn't a husband. I was a tenant in a life they had already designed. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a drink. I looked at my parents, who looked horrified. I looked at Julian, who was literally smirking behind his wine glass. "I understand," I said. I stood up, took the folio, and walked out of the restaurant. I didn't look back once. The drive home was a blur of rain and neon lights. By the time I reached my condo, my phone was exploding. "Ava, you are being so regressive right now." Vivian. "Fear is the opposite of love, Ethan. Your ego is bruising the collective." I ignored them. I called my best friend, Marcus. Marcus isn't just a friend. He's a forensic accountant who specializes in high-net-worth divorces. "Marcus," I said, my voice cracking, "I need you to look at something. I think I'm being scammed by a cult disguised as a family." I scanned the soul bond document and sent it to him. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Ethan, Marcus said, his voice deadly serious. Do not respond to any of them. This isn't just a weird hippie thing. Look at page 12, the Creative Intellectual Property Clause. I flipped to the back. There it was, buried in legalese. Any lifestyle content, media, or branding generated by the household would be the sole property of the Expansion Group LLC. Who owns the Expansion Group? I asked. Sterling and Vivian, Marcus replied. And Ethan? I just did a quick search. They've been shopping a reality TV pilot titled The Modern Tribe. The premise? A traditional high-earner husband learns to live in a fluid household with his wife's ex-lover. The room spun. I wasn't just the financier. I was the villain in a scripted show they were planning to sell. I was the unevolved guy who was going to be educated for the camera. I went into survival mode. That night, I stayed up until 4 a.m. I changed the locks on the condo. I moved our shared savings, which was 90% my money, into a private account. I revoked her access to my credit cards. I even contacted the florist and the venue for the wedding. That's when I found the first real bomb. Ava hadn't just been planning a wedding. She had signed a contract with a production company for location scouting at our wedding venue. She had been paid a consultation fee of $25,000 to allow cameras at the ceremony. I sat in the dark, watching the rain hit the window. I had loved a ghost. The woman I thought I knew didn't exist. She was just a character played by an actress who was managed by her parents. The next day, the War of the Roses began. Vivian posted a long, rambling essay on her Mindful Living blog. It was titled When the Masculine Ego Suffocates the Soul. She didn't use my name, but she used my profession. She talked about a man of code and logic who couldn't compute the language of the heart. The comments were brutal. Her followers called me a toxic controller and a misogynist. Then Ava's father, Sterling, sent me an email. It was a notice of intent to sue for breach of emotional contract. He claimed that because I had agreed to the wedding, I was liable for the reputational damage caused to their family by my public walkout. I took everything to my lawyer, Sarah. Sarah is a shark who eats people like Sterling for breakfast. They're trying to bully you into a settlement because they're broke, Ethan, Sarah said, flipping through my files. Broke? I asked. They live in a $5 million house in Queen Anne. They rent a $5 million house, she corrected. I pulled the records. Sterling is deep in debt to several private investors, likely people he scammed with his mediation business. They needed your wedding, your house, and this TV deal to keep the lights on. Without you, the Modern Tribe has no funding. I felt a strange sense of peace. What's our move? We don't just defend. Sarah smiled. We deconstruct. We found out that Julian, the soul guide, wasn't just an ex. He was actually Vivian's nephew from a previous marriage. They were keeping it a secret to make the ex-boyfriend narrative more scandalous for the TV pilot. It wasn't evolved love. It was incestuous fraud. I also found out that Ava had used my credit card to buy equipment for Julian's photography studio. Except the equipment didn't exist. She was just funneling cash to him. I waited for the right moment. 2 days later, they called a healing circle at Vivian's house. They invited me, my parents, and a neutral facilitator, who was actually the producer of the TV pilot. They thought I would come crawling back, begging for forgiveness, ready to sign the contract to save the relationship. I walked in with Marcus and Sarah. I didn't sit in the circle. I sat at their dining table and opened my laptop. Ethan, please, Ava said, her eyes welling with fake tears. Just sit. Let's talk about the energy between us. The only energy I'm interested in is the $42,000 you've stolen from me over the last 6 months, I said. I turned the laptop around. I showed them the bank statements. I showed them the email from the production company. And then I showed them the birth certificate we had dug up for Julian. "Hey Julian," I said, looking at the man in the linen shirt. "How's your Aunt Vivian doing? Does the TV network know their progressive ex-lover is actually the bride's cousin?" The silence in that room was the loudest thing I've ever heard. The producer, a woman who had been recording on her phone, suddenly stopped. Her eyes went wide. "Is this true?" she asked. Sterling stood up, his face turning a deep, ugly purple. "This is a private family matter. Ethan, you are violating our privacy." "No," Sarah said, stepping forward. "We are documenting a conspiracy to commit fraud. We've already sent this file to the network's legal department. I suspect your pilot is dead before it even aired." The collapse was spectacular. Once the TV deal fell through, the expansion group folded. Sterling and Vivian were hit with a flurry of lawsuits from other clients they had manipulated. They had to move out of the Queen Anne house and into a small apartment in the suburbs. Ava tried to call me weeks later. She sounded broken. She told me she didn't have a choice, that her parents had pressured her since she was a teenager to be the face of their brand. She told me she really did love me. "Ava," I said, "I don't know who you is. I don't think you know either. Go find yourself. But do it on your own dime." I didn't stop there. I worked with the bank to categorize the charges as fraudulent. Since she had signed my name on several documents without a power of attorney, she was looking at felony charges. I agreed to drop the charges only if she signed a lifetime non-disparagement agreement and a permanent restraining order. I wanted her out of my story forever. It's been a year now. I still live in Seattle. I didn't sell the house with the ADU. Instead, I turned the guest house into a woodshop. I'm currently building a dining table. It's solid oak. No soul bond clauses, no hidden compartments. Just a sturdy foundation. I'm dating someone new now. Her name is Clara. She's a nurse. On our first date, I told her I was a bit traumatized by lifestyle gurus. She laughed and said, "Ethan, I work 12-hour shifts. I don't have time for a lifestyle. I just want a burger and a nap." I realized then that real love isn't a brand. It's not a merger. It's not a protocol. It's just showing up for someone when the cameras aren't rolling. The best part? Last week, I saw a sponsored post on Instagram. It was Vivian, trying to start a new blog about rebuilding after a spiritual storm. I didn't even click on it. I just blocked the account and went back to my woodshop. Because the most powerful thing you can do to a narcissist isn't to hate them. It's to make them irrelevant. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button so you don't miss out on new interesting stories.